This episode is proudly sponsored by Netwealth. Launching nearly 20 years ago, this ASX-listed company is ranked #1 for overall platform functionality and user satisfaction by investment trends for the past 3 years. As the financial advice landscape changes, it's important now more than ever to embrace new technology and enhance the way you do business. With this change comes your chance to innovate, explore new perspectives, and realize new efficiencies. Netwealth is here to support you on this journey by providing you market-leading technology, excellent customer support, and expertise to help you innovate in your business. Visit the Netwealth website to learn more and get the PDS which clients should read before making a decision. Products issued by Netwealth Investments Limited. Gavin, mate, thanks for coming in.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up south. I grew up in Ingading in the Shire.
Yep.
And up till when I was 19, I was a Shire boy and spent a year on the Gold Coast and surfed. And
So you went up for schoolies and just was like, I'm
I'm never going
staying.
back.
Yeah.
No, actually, funny story. I never actually did schoolies. So
Yeah, neither.
I went straight to work and started off life as a plasterer actually when I first left school.
Wow.
So very, very different.
Is that
to
like
what we
your
are now.
dad's company or a mate's company or something?
No, it was girlfriend at the time. Her neighbour was a plasterer and wanted an apprentice, and
Yeah.
thought, hey, everyone else in the Shire is a tradie, so
Yeah.
why not? That was the kind of the rite of passage. So it was kind of that was the path I took at the time, and worked out that really wasn't for me.
Yeah, right. So how many years did you last in plastering?
9 months. Yeah, less than a year.
Right.
Yeah, less than a year.
And because I did some painting at one stage, and you just get, I don't know what it's like plastering, but just heaps of shit under your fingernails.
Yep.
Oh
Yeah.
man, it's like washing your
Yeah.
hands at the end of the day.
Yeah, the dust, the dust, the plaster, constant. Yeah, you don't ever get away from it.
Yeah. Oh man. And then and so 19, you last nearly a year.
Yeah.
Do you go into financial services at that stage?
Yeah, pretty much. I on the Gold Coast, I was working at Billabong and spent a bit of time with them as they only recently floated. I think when I got up there and did some time working in the central sourcing area, so they had a lot of brands doing their own thing in every country, and they decided to bring it together and have one kind of business model.
Was that the decision that screwed them over?
No, I don't think so. I think in terms of what they did around their brand and protecting their brand, I think it was a very smart thing to bring it all together, because you're getting different qualities, I think, in every country, everyone wanting to do their own thing. So I think bringing it together made a lot of sense. And,
right.
You kind of think about what we do in brand now, protecting your brand, making sure you're getting consistent service delivery. It kind of makes a lot of sense to do that. I think their issues came later down the track where they were trying to break into a whole number of different markets very, very quickly, and perhaps that was the start of their downfall. I'm not sure.
Yeah, right. And so you plasterer, Billabong.
Yep.
Where's financial services come in?
Yeah, so when I worked either side of the time at Billabong, I worked in a customs brokerage and a freight forwarding business, and that was my entree into sitting at a desk and working in a corporate environment. Yeah, and then kind of the Billabong time came back, worked back at the customs brokerage, and it kind of wasn't as fulfilling as I would have hoped. And I always had a thirst and a passion for finance. Yep. And I always enjoyed it. I hadn't taken that traditional university route, and then found myself at Royal & Son Alliance in 2001.
What did they do?
Royal & Son Alliance was the business that effectively morphed into Astron. And,
right.
Yeah. So they were a UK-based firm.
Right.
And Royal & Son Alliance were, they'd been in Australia for a very long time, and they'd acquired groups like Tyndall, Liberty Life, Oceanic. So they were a big insurer.
Yes.
And not too dissimilar to, I suppose, Tower or Tao, as we know them now. Kind of bringing in and buying lots of businesses along the way through acquisition. I rode the Promenor wave, which was the parent company that kind of started as a result of them listing in Australia, a separate entity, and then worked there till 2006. 2007, sorry, and then went across to Macquarie when they started their life business and helped with the start of that business.
Yeah.
And then,
did they have Active back then?
No, Active came about not long before I left. So I kind of worked with a bunch of people in there on that build for Active, which was pretty exciting. And then we took that to market, and then not long after that, I went to AMP to help kind of rebuild their IFA, New South Wales presence, and I was kind of the state manager of the IFA business over there.
Wow.
Initially selling kind of their risk to the IFAs, and then we went out with flexible super, and there was other products that followed, and then through the merger of AXA, we took on more capability with North, and my space was purely the IFA market. So
that would have kept you pretty busy, man.
It was busy. It was a busy time.
And then, so during all this time, are you doing much work with the corporate side of things?
In a sense of corporate super?
Yes.
Yeah. So we always had an eye on the small corporate plans, up to 30, 40 members and whatnot. That was always kind of in a play that we were looking at taking out a viable offering there. When I was at Astron, and obviously Astron have a legacy with corporate super business as well through their Optimum products and all the rest, which is now morphed into their new offering that they've relaunched. So there's always been a presence with corporate super and kind of, and background on how you engage members in the mass space, and I suppose it was those learnings of understanding how the corporate space and how to engage in that corporate space. And, AMP had no shortage of concepts and ideas and programs they were looking to roll out to engage. And that took me to meeting Mark through the AFA, actually, 10 years ago, and kind of sharing ideas around what you do in the corporate space and all the rest. And that's when we started looking at what we do in his business and how you would engage and what you would do if you had the ability to do so. And we started working together, and we generated Your Wealth Hub, which is one of the businesses I look after now.
And then, as a top line premise, what do you feel that Your Wealth Hub does better than everything else?
Yeah, it's the ability to go into a workplace and give members or employees a safe place to talk about issues that they may not have been able to talk about before. And I think if you consider financial stress is within everyone somewhere, somehow, in the workplace, people take that stress to work without an outlet. And in a corporate environment, they take it to work where they have to kind of, meander through their world, knowing that the monkey's on their back, or whatever analogy you want to use. But in the workplace, you become less productive if you're financially stressed. There's lots of statistics and reports that talk about that. But the downside of that is that the workplace becomes less productive with employees who are financially stressed. And what we're able to do is go into the workplace with a face-to-face engagement, a one-on-one engagement with the group environment where people can ask questions. And we had one yesterday where we were working with a group, and the majority of people who came along were people who are under 30, and it was really good to see so many enthusiastic people there who want to learn about the basics of finance. But the point of that is, we're able to have people ask questions in a safe environment where no question is a silly question or a stupid question, because quite typically other people want to ask that same question. So in going out and talking about it and sharing a lot on the basics of money, having a digital presence through our website that we can share and engage and direct people there so they can self-educate and self-learn. There's a whole series of low-cost solutions and special deals that we've been able to negotiate with different providers where people can go in and navigate themselves, or they can have their one-on-one or put their hand up and ask a question and move into an environment where it would be a traditional advice relationship. So there's something for everybody, and whether it's a digital engagement, face-to-face engagement over the phone, or whatever, there's typically something for everyone. That's a really long answer.
No, mate, it was such a good answer because okay, so you've got digital for people who just want to go it alone.
Yeah.
You've got phone-based for the people who want a little bit of interaction, and then you've got face-to-face for people who want the high-touch action.
Correct.
Do you have sort of any numbers off the top of your head, round figures, on what percentage of people fall into each of those three categories?
That's a really good question. We typically see across the board about a 25% engagement.
Yep.
So in terms of our monthly engagement with our educational update, the figure sits at a consistent 25%. They're the people who are reading our articles every month, which by all accounts is a pretty good number.
Right.
We typically see in a workplace about 50% of people come to an education session at some point throughout the year. So we're engaging a good number of people at a face-to-face level, of which you probably see about half again ask a question, engage in some way, of which half will sit down for a one-on-one and half will probably want to do something and take action.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you're able to appeal to the masses with a broad message.
Yes.
And then through questions and messages that you're presenting in the sessions or in your educational updates, you're able to, weed out the people who may have taken that, had their thirst quenched, and move on to the next step. But then you've got the people who obviously need the support.
Yes.
We know that 20% of people are going to engage in a financial advice relationship, and there's 80% largely who don't. It's not that they want to have their head in the sand, and we certainly wouldn't think that they purposely do that, but it's just too hard. And as a financial advice profession and the broader finance industry, we don't make it easy sometimes, and that's troubling.
Yeah.
And it means that people who are financially stressed, back to my first point about taking stress in the workplace, they don't feel like that there's an easy way for them to obtain the answers. There's not choice around where you can turn. And we'd like to think, as a value proposition, your Wealth Hub enables people to consider choices. And if people have choices, they feel more confident and comfortable to make a decision, because they know that I don't have nowhere to turn. I have somewhere, and I have a number of options I can choose.
Yeah.
So in terms of the segments of where best people like to, where they like to look, I don't have the specific areas about what number of people actually sit in which box, but what I do know is that through this kind of mass approach, having messages that appeal to everybody, we can then kind of cut those segments down based on the different demographics that kind of want to go through. So if people are interested about getting on top of their credit card debt, they don't know how, we'll talk to people about that. If they want to understand how to prepare for retirement, we talk about that. The emerging kind of theme of late is people who have parents who are moving into aged care facilities and understanding what's that all about.
Right.
So you kind of weed out these different groups as you kind of travel through different messages.
And then, are you getting experts to write these articles for you, or are you guys doing this internally?
Yeah, combination of both. We know our skill set. The people who work, for your Wealth Hub are either financial advisors or they're people who have been involved in different aspects of a traditional financial advice relationship. So their expertise in creating a layman's term article or a story or a presentation means that we can kind of move down areas that are close to our heart. But we have a community of specialist businesses that sit around us to fill in the gaps. So aged care specialists, we have a relationship with Care 360. We have property advocates who have a great relationship with PMC Property. We've got debt specialists, My Debt Advisor. We have a whole raft of businesses that work with us that provide the gaps. And one thing that we've done differently this year is we have town hall meetings.
No way.
Yeah. So we have these kind of
that's cool, man.
We have these sessions that we run. We run Q&As. This year we've just done Q&As as opposed to set presentations. And we go out to our member base. We have about I think 2,750 odd members that we have now in your Wealth Hub. We go out to the member base and let them know where they're going to be, what we're talking about.
Yes.
That format's been so much more successful than a traditional let's come talk about what's going on and all the rest. So we have typically 3 subject matter experts and we weave the messages in together.
Yeah.
The last one we did was on retirement.
Yep.
And it was about retiring, but not the way you would think. We had a real life retiree talking about their journey.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
How did you get someone to say that they're comfortable sharing their story?
Yeah, well Mick is a guy I worked with years ago, and he's been 6 years retired, and he thought he was financially secured.
Yep.
He was fit as fit can be.
Yep.
Indestructible, and was just going to go on being Mick, and life's great. He got really crook.
Oh no!
He had 2 or 3 life-changing events within a couple of years of retiring. No. Financially, obviously markets go up and down and all the rest. So he had to reevaluate how he wants to live. Kids have moved out of home. Yeah. So, is the big house what I wanted? I didn't expect to have to make those decisions. So he was very candid. And the people that came along were like, geez, that's kind of me. Or that could be me.
Yes.
We had a nutritionist come along talking about
really
the physical kind of issues that you'll be facing as you approach retirement. And when you're there, it's about not just the physical, but then obviously the mental. How to captivate your mind while you're in retirement. What are you doing? What purpose do you have?
Yeah.
Most people, they will work up to retirement, and it'll be a very fulfilling world because you're going to work, you clock on, you clock off, and you've got purpose in between. But to go home and then to suddenly think, you don't really have that purpose anymore.
Man,
what do you do with your time?
Absolutely. Like figuring out why to get up in the morning can be really difficult for people who retire.
Yeah, and Mick kind of cut off. The lady escapes me now, who's Victoria Black it was. She was talking about this, and Mick cut in and said, "You know what? For 9 months, I thought this was the best life ever. After 9 months, I was like, what the hell am I doing with myself?"
Yeah. And actually, what was he doing?
Nothing.
Yeah, God.
He was finding things to do to take up his time, so his wife wasn't on his back about what he had or hadn't done for the day. And before he knew it, 3:30, 4 o'clock, his wife came home and she was asking why the rubbish hadn't been taken out. He's like, I've got to find things to do to fill my time so I don't get in trouble for not taking the rubbish out.
Yeah.
So it's things like that, and then we had Mark kind of bringing it together around. What are the financial elements you need to be considerate of?
Yeah.
If you're retiring thinking you're going to be relying on the pension, what does that mean? How much is the pension? Is this realistically what you can live on? Looking at I wrote an article last week talking about retirees entering pre-retirees moving towards retirement without a handbrake. Now the reality is, if you're not aware of your spending leading into retirement, and you think you're going to spend X amount in retirement, how do you know those two numbers actually even coexist?
Yeah.
You need to be across your spending before you can go to retirement thinking that this is exactly what you need. So the sooner you get control of your spending, the better off you can be. So, Mark brings to life a lot of the financial elements to it. So between the financial, the kind of physical and emotional pieces moving to retirement, and then what actually happens once you get there. We had, I think, about 30 or 40 people in the audience. They're like, oh, okay, that's an eye opener, and then we can engage off the back of that.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing, financial advice, and because it does bleed into those areas, as you said, health, and purpose. What gave you the idea to do this? That's because it's another way to look at it is corporate wellness. In that. So, in my opinion, from what I've seen, it's something that people think about doing but don't really do. And then you guys come along, you're like, okay, we're doing this in this way, and you use education, and you've got, depending on engagement, different levels that people can get involved. So if there's advisors out there and they're thinking they want to sort of start connecting with people, because what you've just said is you give people a journey, an educational journey, right? There's a lot of people probably listening that have wanted to do things like blogs and wanted to do, maybe they did one or two and they're on their website, but they didn't get a substantial result in a short amount of time, and they gave up, and they're sort of just sitting there on the website from 2-3 years ago, right? How did you decide, how did you make that decision to actually do this and stick to it and turn it into what you've turned it into so far?
Great question. I suppose the catalyst was understanding that in the corporate super world, business had done the same thing for a long time, but really hadn't achieved any different results. And there was a significant opportunity in an advice firm to engage differently. And one of the best things I saw when I was on corporate world is all these great initiatives that weren't being introduced into people's practices. And I think at a business level, the reason why they weren't being introduced is because most principals don't have the time to implement these things, and they don't have the resources. If they have the resources, they're being stretched because typically most planning firms are they run pretty thin. and they don't have the ability to do that.
Mm.
The only people that would be able to build something like what we've done is businesses that saw that, you need to do things differently and had the ability to invest in a resource like me. My role was to come in initially as a general manager and to reposition a dormant at the time, a risk-focused business and a corporate super business for the future. So we did a whole bunch of work there to start with, but then built Your Wealth Hub as a result of seeing there was so much really cool stuff sitting on the outside that wasn't being brought together. And a lot of what I've done is to bring those great tools and concepts and ideas together, wrap them up into Your Wealth Hub, taken a whole heap of statistics out to corporates, to CFOs and HR directors to say, hey, this is your problem. Your problem you need to solve is the fact that in the workplace, there is wastage because your staff are bringing financial stress into the office. It's not just impacting them, but it's impacting the staff that sit around them. Someone needs to say, stop, we can help you. And the logical place to do it is in the workplace, as opposed to try to bottom up outside. You look at some of the tools the banks deliver. There's some great initiatives. There's a lot of money spent on advertising and marketing. It's mass advertising through mainstream media, radio, TV, and the strike rates aren't fantastic for these great initiatives and great tools. And they kind of wonder why. How do we engage better? It seemed only logical that the workplace was the way to do it. So back to kind of into the workplaces, you speak to HR directors, and they love the fact that they can make a difference and improve the productivity of their staff by taking a vested interest in their financial wellness. If you give people the ability to have a choice around how they solve their problems, they're less likely to be doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And on average, people will spend, who are financially stressed, 40% of the population, working population, they'll spend an hour a day doing things they shouldn't be doing, whether that's daydreaming or on the internet trying to find a solution or looking at the next way to get rich, to get themselves out of these issues. Financial stress is real. It doesn't matter which way you kind of package it up, it's very real. Spending an hour a day means there's the dollar figure you can quantify it with.
Yeah.
And we created an equation through some of the research from Canada and America and the UK, which just sits on our website, where you can put your average salary in with the number of people in your business and work out the wastage in your business.
Wow.
When we started showing CFOs that, because as much as HR directors love the fluffy, we want to help your staff and you can make an interest, you can become an employer of choice, and we can make a real difference in their world, and you're not going to have as much staff turnover, et cetera, et cetera. You show the CFOs and they're like, sounds great, but how much does it cost?
Yeah.
And it's straight away the door's closing. You can feel it.
Yes.
And then you show them the wastage, and they're like, so you're saying if I could reduce the wastage and that could in turn, convert into a higher productivity rate, the question is, what would that do to your business if you could do that? And then you get all the fluffy stuff that sits on the outside, and then that's where people start looking at it and take it seriously. So yeah. That's the journey,
mate. Because I think you've got a pretty unique skill set. On one hand, you're a finance guy, and then you love to go surfing and play music and travel and all that sort of stuff. So, I'd like to duck into just you for a second. Sure. So you spend about a month in Bali, down south, surfing the awesome swell there, and that's not even your holiday time. So how did you do this? Because that's one of those things in life that many people wish they could do. So who did you have to convince in order to make this happen?
Look, the vision, I suppose, to be able to work remotely, needs a number of factors to come into play. Obviously, Mark, my business partner, obviously have to be comfortable that we both can do it. Mark works for 4 weeks from Italy. I work for 4 weeks or 5 weeks from Bali. So, we do this together. From an operational perspective, we've set the business up where we have, all our client-facing activity done out of North Sydney and non-client-facing activities done out of the Philippines. So all our database, back office stuff.
Yep.
So first and foremost, with everything process-driven and everyone's very clear on what they should and shouldn't be doing, it makes it a lot easier. The technology piece is the enabler, obviously, that's going to mean you can and can't do what you want to do. So for me, in the morning in Bali on any given day, I'll wake up at 5:30, check emails and do probably an hour or two in the morning, do what I need to do that may finish off the day before, and maybe go for a surf.
Yeah, right.
So that's not a bad thing.
That's awesome.
Come back, do the same thing. I might be having a Zoom meeting with staff members, so we try to do that. Every Monday morning was a sales meeting. The times were still met. I was up a little earlier. I was in a little bit of time in Java this time, so rather than being up at 6, I was up at 5. But it all still worked, and it was as if I was still sitting in North Sydney. What? So from Mark's perspective and my perspective, the agreement and kind of the vision was that we'd be able to pick up and be able to do this if we were committed to the cause.
Yes.
And that's what we wanted to do, and that's what we've been able to achieve. Technology is the enabler, absolutely. And probably 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do it in Bali because the way the speed of the internet would work. But interestingly, I did. This is funny. I was in central Java, south of Yogyakarta, on the coast, and I had to do some trimming for a podcast that I had done, and upload the video to YouTube.
Yep.
And a video that would usually take a couple of minutes here, I swear took about 10 or 12 seconds to upload over there. Yeah, what? Yeah. And I was like, this is insane. This is insane. Anyway, worked really, really quick. I don't know how it happened.
Oh, I think they must have stolen our MBN.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what the finished pieces are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, look, I think for any business entity that thinks that this is important to them, I hate winter. I love being in the warmth. So for me, a big driver is that. Big driver is being there when the swell's good. So I do have the flexibility to be able to do it, but it's also having the discipline to know that when you need to work, you need to work.
Yeah.
Having great Zoom connection, having good internet so you can run Zoom and have video conferences. I think if you set the expectation with your clients and people around you that this is the accepted way we're going to engage, no one questions it.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the discipline to make it work and you let things slip and all that type of stuff, I suppose that point of reference around the relationship that you've wanted to set and the tone you've set for the relationship obviously starts to be eroded. So yeah, you just have to follow through to make sure you're actually doing the right thing.
And so when you say your staff and you're having Zoom meetings, is this like how many Australian staff do you have?
We've got 10 in the office now.
10 in the office. And are they mostly financial planners?
There's 3 financial planners and then support staff.
Wow. Yeah, right. Yeah. So and so in the 3 years that you've been doing this, how much of that is growth, or was that the size of the business that you launched at day one?
Yeah, no. We have Strictly Super, we have Noel & Co, we have Your Wealth Hub, and we have our own license, which I run. Yeah. So I sit across the 4 business entities.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a few hats there.
Yes.
Half the staff sit within Noel & Co, half sit within Strictly Super, and we have extracts that kind of work across Your Wealth Hub at different points. So, I build the education. Steve in the office also helps build the education, and then we go out and deliver that to our corporate super clients or our clients in Your Wealth Hub who work directly with us. It's not through a corporate super relationship, it's that they've actually sought out a wellness program to running their business. So it's a bit different. So we all kind of have a hand in working together in some way in those entities.
And what do the other entities do?
The other entities?
Yeah.
So as in Vinarc, as in our license?
Yes.
So that's our AFSL.
Is it just you guys, or do you have other practices under that AFSL? Okay. Is that something that you're interested in doing?
Yeah. So
what would you be looking for in a practice?
Yeah, look, I have a vision around licensees need to fundamentally change. I think the model at the moment is somewhat broken, and I think we're going to see more information come to hand about how broken, I suppose, the regulator thinks that they actually are.
Yeah.
And I think the interim report that comes out from the Royal Commission end of September will be indicative, I suppose, of what we'll see in February with the full report coming out. But I think fundamentally licensee models need to change. I think there's 2 layers of engagement in a licensee model that we all need to be aware of. There's the must-haves, the non-negotiables, and the core. I call it the core, and that's really around 4 areas. It's around remuneration and distribution. It's around education. It's around compliance, and it's around. She's test me on the last one. Education, compliance, remuneration, and compliance documentation.
So right. Yep.
What you do around audits and all that type of stuff. And I think at a core, licensees need to do that stuff really bloody well. But what tends to happen in licensee land is, for the best part, and there are some good ones, and there are obviously ones that obviously are just doing the basics, but typically what I've seen over the years is that you will be treated in a business entity or an individual, you'll be wanting to work to the midpoint. And if you sit outside the midpoint, something that's controllable, a lot of compliance and legal that sit behind these entities get very nervous because you sit outside the norm. Yes. Too far to the left, too far to the right, they get a little concerned. They really want everyone just to be doing the same thing.
Yep.
But if you have a creative license to want to do things differently and engage through a financial wellness program or do things differently, they get a little bit nervous because it's this is different. We don't know how to do this. This is unusual.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that we can remain in control and we don't see any risk. And I get the risk protection part. I think that's very important. But largely, if you're a big practice that's been a big practice for a long time and want to grow, but the majority of people in your licensee are largely mid-sized businesses, when you start bouncing ideas off your peers, you look around and you realize very quickly that there isn't many of those people there. So then the question is, where do you go? What do you do?
Yeah.
And I think that's why, I think last year the figure was 9% of advisors moved into an own FSL environment.
That's massive, isn't it?
It's massive. And it's only a sign of things to come. But on top of the core, which is what, the basics, I think then that's where you have the real value.
Yes.
And I think this kind of co-op model that I've been kind of building in my mind and putting onto paper is having like-minded businesses that want to come together. The businesses that are the outliers but have a common vision and common values. They come together and they not only appreciate that they need to get better at delivering service to their clients, but understand and realize that perhaps their model may not be best practice.
Yep.
And there is benefit in sharing those ideas with other businesses. So creating a hub where you have best practice that's continually being evolved and refined, having documentation created in a central place at a low cost rather than having an expensive resource that may be taking more time and a higher amount to basically execute.
Yes.
But having that type of service delivery managed in the office, but having the documentation production in a central place. It's about having a proper business coaching. It's tailored to an individual. If you have like-minded people, you can get the best business coach to work on 6 businesses as opposed to 1.
Very good point.
If you have, if you want to do something a little bit different left field, if you want to take your proposition to a new market, building the best of breed marketing programs, having the best social media experts working with you, the marketing resource, all those things. So if you can take those best of kind of conversations and have them as a value add in the license, but you've got the people involved that only are looking forward and they're in pure growth mode.
Yes.
Together, the economies of scale there mean you can succeed. So that new license model is not just about doing the core stuff reasonably well. It's about doing the core stuff bloody well every time, but that's just the starting point.
Yes.
It's all about looking forward and ensuring that the common vision and the values align to the best possible outcome to clients, constantly looking for new ways of engaging so you can help reduce the cost to your client for that service delivery, but you as an entity, as a business owner, are doing the absolute best and more all the time. And I think, it's a big statement. It's a big goal, but I think you need to start somewhere. And I think that best of breed kind of efficiency piece is at the heart of that value add piece.
And where are you getting your support from? Like who are you talking with to be able to deliver everything that it is that you want to deliver?
Yeah, so my peers. So I chair the Leaders Forum for the AFA, so
yes.
National Chair for Leaders Forum.
You've been doing that for quite some time, right?
Yeah. So I think since inception, so 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, wow.
Now, so it's a small number of groups, and I have my peers that are in there that we bounce ideas off.
Yeah,
and we get to talk about what's happening, and what's happening from a legislative perspective, what's happening from a service delivery perspective. What are the common issues that we're facing?
Yeah,
and it was I met up with one of the guys today before I came here, and I was just highlighting that what I said early on. One of the common issues in a lot of these practices is that the ideas are plentiful, but the implementation isn't. So it's all about understanding how you actually implement a lot of these. So again, that peer group and having good people around to say, well, have you done this? Have you tried this? What would it look like?
Yes.
What mistakes did you make? I think the benefit of sharing that information isn't just the wins; it's the stuff that didn't work and the reasons why it didn't work, and understanding that the speed humps, some are necessary to make sure you get best product, best practice, but other times you can avoid a lot of the stuff you can avoid, and they could be common things. So if we can eliminate that stuff and mean that we've got a clear path to where we need to be, I think we're all heading in the right direction together.
Yeah, man. That's been I think with financial planning being at such a sensitive position, there is so much sharing of information going on, and it's I just don't know. I can't imagine any other industry being as dedicated to helping the positive evolution, as we say at XY, the positive evolution of financial advice, because we want to make sure that we choose the direction of where financial advice is headed. And what do you think? Like, do you think that the legislation will get rewritten so that financial advice is decoupled from product at a legislative? I just, no matter how many times I think about it, I always come back to at its legal core, it's seen as the same thing. That advice and product is seen as the same thing, and then you've got all these band-aids over the top, best interest duty, info for and everything, which it's done its job and it's done a good job. But if you keep digging, you come back to product advice is linked at a legislative level. So imagine if that gets rewritten. Imagine after the RC that one of the core findings is we decouple financial advice from product. What are some things, and is this something that that your group of leaders are doing at the AFA? Are you guys thinking about ways to help direct those changes? Like, are you getting involved at any sort of lobbying level?
Yeah, absolutely. To your first point around leading the journey for financial advice, I think as a profession and previously as an industry, I think we've been pretty poor at leading that conversation.
Yeah.
I think we've allowed product manufacturers and regulation and people waving the sticks at leading where we should go. And I don't think that's a viable and sustainable way of kind of perpetuating ourselves. We do such a great job. Our profession helps so many people, yet we don't lead our own.
It's a weird thing, isn't it?
It's a really strange thing.
Yeah.
And you're right. Yeah. We share because proportionately there's so many more people that could use our support than who actually receive it now. So it makes absolute sense that for us we work together as opposed to work against each other.
Yeah.
And I think there's a piece of dialogue alone in that. We do need to be working together to share the value advice, but we also need to be respectful that not everyone wants to move down a full advice relationship.
Yep.
And I think in that, I think we've come unstuck in the past because we've just tried to hunt clients to move down our standard relationship, without understanding that there needs to be a tiered engagement model, and at some point you're going to have to say no to some clients because they just don't fit your demographic, and that no gives you more respect than saying yes and trying to squeeze them in. And we've seen obviously what's happened when that conversation goes astray. So I think from that perspective, we do need to lead the conversation, and I think we're getting much better. And movements like this, I think, show a much more proactive and positive message to show to consumers about what advice can do to support people. So I'll just say that just first and foremost.
Yeah.
What are we doing by way of lobbying and engaging and trying to lead? Absolutely. So the ethos of the Leaders Forum is that we can take some of the thinking that's distilled at a national level when our leaders get together. We try to get together once a year in our national summit. Our next ones will be in March or May next year. It hasn't quite landed which time period it will be. But the idea is that we take that thinking and distill it back through the community.
Right.
And to the point before around, licensees, they have outliers and they have people that outgrow the license because they're either growing too fast, too quick. They look around, and if they don't have any peers around, they need to find somewhere. So that's where I think the industry bodies have a great opportunity to bring those people together. And that's why, through the AFA, we've been able to create leaders. So when we get together, we think of some really cool stuff. We get some really interesting speakers that come together, be it financially focused, non-financially focused. We had a great session a couple of years ago from Jeff Kennett about leadership through adversity. He's had some challenging roles over the years, and taking the things that he said, he's had 5 finger principles of leadership, taking them back and how we introduce those into our businesses. And the concept is that through 35 different leaders coming together, they can then go out to their own communities in each state and their own circles and share the outcomes of that. I know the AFA has already used that a couple of times with some of their sessions. I think 2 years ago, the national conference theme came out of Leaders Forum think tank. So it is taking the biggest, brightest firms, understanding what we need to do collectively from a legislative level, from an emotional client engagement level. What is the experience that we're trying to achieve? And one of the topics that we had a couple of years ago was understanding what advice would look like 5 years from now. And this was 2 years ago. So in 3 years' time, we're going to see what we discussed come to fruition.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to go back to see how and what we do as a result of that.
Let me in on it. Yeah. What did you predict?
Yeah, so I suppose the key outcomes from there were, there's probably 2 or 3 that were of interest for us. One is that advice delivery is going to look very different, and I think at that stage we started to predict the decoupling of vertical integration.
Yep.
And I think institutional ownership, and we've already seen this year the majority of institutions kind of flagged that their intention of having distribution with product is ceasing, and businesses are quickly moving away from life insurance, from banks. We're seeing a lot of movement in that space. Largest amount of acquisitions we've seen in the last 5 or 10 years with businesses kind of moving away that way.
Yeah.
The same with licensee land. You're seeing a lot of consolidation, and then, as I said before, the 9% number of AFSLs that have started. So that's the first and foremost. I think the second one was interesting, and that's kind of along the lines of talking about this co-op model where you get like-minded businesses banding together, sharing back office services, and trying to create efficiency by scaling up centrally, which I think is a really big part as well. One of the areas that was emerging at the time was SMAs, looking at managed accounts and how they actually work, and that's obviously proves to be beneficial for a number of different reasons. There's a lot of efficiency at a practice level, which helps. But down the track, the way we're thinking about the evolution of robo, and even back then, robo was seen as in those 4 walls back then. Robo was seen as a way of engaging a client base that we weren't able to engage before. I don't think from leaders it was ever seen as a threat to clients, and I still honestly believe that robo will be an enabler for people to understand more about their own situation. I don't think it's a threat at all. In fact, I welcome it, and I think the more that some of the big brands can spend on getting these tools, which are fantastic, into the mainstream, inevitably people will effectively ask questions, and they will want more than what's in front of them. And I think that's where people who are firmly focused on delivering a great service outcome and really want to work with clients, I think that's where robo will come in and play as an entree into an advice relationship. So the key themes there are technology.
That's a very good point. And just on that, so do you guys use any robo in your engagement?
Yeah, so we have Map My Plan.
You do. I'm sitting here the whole time you were talking going, Map My Plan would be perfect for you guys.
Yeah, so we launched our second tier, our version 2.0, in June this year. So we're early days. And we brought on a whole range of new services. We've got Spriggy for children's banking. We've got Map My Plan.
Spriggy. I've heard of this.
Yeah, children's banking. It's a cool app. Kids get their cards. Parents can monitor what they're doing.
Yeah.
Allocate funds. Really cool, very simple.
That
very
is so, I
easy.
think I saw about that for the first time in FinCon in America a couple of years ago. Right, so you're using that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So we're engaging. So when it comes to how you engage, how you
That's
teach kids about
really
money,
cool, man.
check out Spriggy.
Yeah. How's this? We had do you know Andrew Rocks from the Announcer Group? Yep. So one of the
one of the leaders for him.
Is he? I had it in my mind that he would as well. So one of the things that he talks about that he does is to connect with parents is to do non-financial events, such as CPR courses for the mums and dads, and then have different nights for mums and dads. And there's all these little things that I think are getting worked really well. So it's great to hear that someone's using Spriggy as well.
Yeah. Roxy's we'll talk about Roxy very quickly. Roxy's always had a very, very futuristic view of the world, and I've known him for a long time.
He's our version of Elon Musk. He's the fragile planning Elon Musk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember working with Roxy when it was just him and his business partner at the time.
No way.
Out of Surrey Hills.
Interesting.
So he's grown a fantastic business, and he's always looking for new ways to engage. And I love the fact that he sees that you don't have to talk about finances to engage people and earn trust. It is all about that holistic thinking about what's important to someone, and you know what, if it's to do with kids and understanding if the worst was to happen, having a CPR class, that's fantastic. Love it. Good work, Roxy.
Absolutely. And so Spriggy, Map My Plan.
Raise, which is the old
Raise, using that as well. Very cool.
We use Wiser Credit, which is a credit.
I'm unfamiliar with that.
It's a credit consolidation service.
Right.
So it's really designed for people with multiple credit card debts and they can't get on top of it. They consolidate it at a low interest rate, and they're doing a great job. They're a really good business.
Interesting. Okay. So all of these things are robo-esque.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Fintech. It's fintech.
Yes.
Combination of robo. But we have Discover 365 in there as well, which is a travel business. So again, it's going on the lifestyle side of things.
Man, that's so cool.
Yeah, and Care 360, which is a new aged care service. It's kind of like an Uber for aged care. It's very cool.
Get out of town.
Yeah, very cool.
Whoa, mate. I could actually spend a lot more time finding out more, but we've come up to the end of our time. So, mate, thank you so much for coming on, and congratulations. It's been great to at least watch it from afar, the growth of this business. So it was awesome to find out a bit more about it, and it'd be great to have you back on sometime.
Yeah, thank you. Great to spend some time with you.
Cheers, man.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.